Today's coin have been requested multiple times by you guys, here on YouTube, on Twitter and Instagram. Trias is less than a year old, but it have been developing a very interesting corrective pattern that seems to be ending. So today I will dive deep to analyze this corrective pattern and see how soon it could end and what are the best buy zones. So watch till the end if you want the full details. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is King, your host, and as always today's video is for educational purposes only. If you are a returning subscriber, welcome back, and if it's your first time in the channel and you happen to enjoy my content, then please make sure to subscribe and hit the like button. Also leave a comment below if you want to ask me any question or if you want to discuss the analysis with me. Now let's go and look at the chart. Starting with the trend on the weekly time frame, I can clearly see that the trend is not yet decided. In other words, I can't yet tell if this is going up from here or if this is going down from a trend perspective. And that's usually the challenge with most of the new cryptocurrencies. We don't have enough history to be 100% sure. Now going back to the trend, this trend has started at this point here at its lowest point. After that it has formed a high and then it has formed a low, but it never went beyond these 2 points to form higher highs or lower lows. Now a basic uptrend will need a low, a high, a higher low, and then a higher high. And the same thing goes out for a basic downtrend. We need a high, a low, a lower high, and then a lower low. And as you can see here, we only have a low, a high, and then a higher low, and that's it. We don't have a higher high, we don't have a lower low. Now this doesn't mean that we can't tell where will the price go to next, because we do have a complete different story from a structure perspective. By breaking down the current structure, I can see that we have only 2 waves in this structure. The first one is the initial impulse that started here at this point and that ended here at this point. And this one is considered complete. The second one is this corrective pattern here in between these 2 lines. And this one includes 3 smaller pieces inside of it, but it's not yet complete. Now, as I always say in my videos, a basic structure in the market should include at least 3 waves. And these are an initial impulse, 3 smaller pieces of correction, and then a second impulse or a third wave. Now in this structure here, we do have the first wave or the first impulse, which is this one here. We also have the second wave or this 3-wave correction, which is this one over here. But we don't know yet if this correction is complete because the third piece of it did not yet end. Now the important part here is, if you can call the end of this third piece, then you can call the end of the full correction or the second wave of this structure and the start of the new impulse of this structure, which is the third wave over here. Now this will allow you to write the third wave of this structure from its beginning and make some real gains here. So as you have already guessed by now, we'll be moving to the daily chart to see how soon this last piece of the correction will end. On the daily chart, each one of these 3 corrective waves is usually broken down into smaller pieces, and they usually tend to mirror each other. Now keep in mind this mirroring concept because it will help us build our judgment later about when this last piece of the correction will end. So let's start breaking this structure down, and we'll start with the first wave. Now this first wave includes 5 smaller waves. The initial one has started here, and this was the second one, this was the third one, this was the fourth, and this was the fifth. So this is the first impulse of the bigger structure. Now going to the second one includes 1, 2, and 3 waves only, and this is the correction of the structure. Now the third piece of the structure is an impulse similar to the first one, so ideally it should mirror the same pattern, and this one includes 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Now what does this mean? It means that the third piece of the correction is at its end because it has already formed 5 waves similar to the first one, and also we can't usually have more than 5 waves in a single piece, so it's either 3 or 5. Now this does not necessarily mean that we'll start going up today from this point onwards, and that's because the 5th wave of this structure could extend a little bit further down, or we can also see some kind of sideways movement before deciding to continue up. But there's another reason also that could make this a possibility, and it's the overall corrective pattern itself. Now if we take the highest point here and the lowest point of this correction, we will see that the second wave of this structure did not break the top or the all-time high that we had here. And this specific pattern is usually what we call a running flat. And usually in 80% of these patterns, we will need to break the low of the first impulse, the lowest point, before continuing to go up. So this has a very high possibility of extending further till maybe breaking this low at this point before getting the reversal and continuing to go up from here. Now if this scenario doesn't happen and we end up going up from some point over here, which is also a possibility, we will need a confirmation before we agree that we have turned from bearish into bullish. And this confirmation has to be a breakout of this downtrend with highs and lows in the opposite direction of this last piece. If we take a closer look at this last piece, we can see that after reaching the highest point here, we started trending down. So we had a low, a lower high, then a lower low, another lower high, and now we have formed a new lower low. So if we continue going up, the first high that we form in the opposite direction of this downtrend will be our confirmation. Now in our case over here, this was the last high that we formed in a downtrend. So we will need to see the price going up and forming a high above this last high here, so that we don't take any risk or any chances with this one. And because we said that this third piece of the structure is mirroring the first one, let's take a look at the first one to see what happened then. So after the price was trending down with lows, lower highs, lower lows, and lower highs, and so on, after reaching the lowest point over here, the price started its initial impulse and retested the previous high. So if we put a line here, we can see that both are similar. So this was the last high and this was the initial retest at this point. The first attempt failed and pulled back, but as soon as the price went for its second attempt and broke above the previous high, you can see how the new uptrend was initiated and we started trending up. So basically we need to see something similar over here. Now this could come in so many different scenarios. For example, we could be going up similar to what we had in the first one, tested the first time, pull back, and then break out. So that's one possibility. The other one, we could be coming and breaking right away, then come back for a retest and then continue going up. So no matter how it goes, we will need to break this previous high that stands at about $8. And to sum this up, as soon as we see the price breaking out above this last high or in the opposite direction, we can confirm the start of a new uptrend and we can start looking for entries around these areas here. Now it's worth mentioning that this may not be so far away from this point because the price is already exhausted and oversold on the daily time frame, and even on the weekly time frame, if we take a look at that, we can see that we are already oversold as well. So this confluence between these two time frames gives a very strong chance for a new uptrend to start from here. Just keep in mind the extension that I spoke about earlier and the possibility that the price may drop down a little bit before continuing to go up further. So if you keep that in mind, you shall be good to go. And I also want to tell you that I'm not going to put any targets here on this one. But what I can tell you is that as soon as we start the third impulse of this structure here, so the least we should expect is that the price should come to break this previous all-time high. But first, we should confirm that this correction, the 1, 2, 3 correction, has ended before we start looking at the next impulse going forward. So if you like today's video, please make sure to subscribe if you're not subscribed yet. Hit the like button because it will really help my channel, and share the video if you think it's worth sharing. This was it for today, guys, and until next time, stay safe and see you later.